Welcome to the final installment of the Tool2Type workshop. Let's get started. We're getting close to the completion of the font, and much of what I'll be doing will be off camera. Once all the glyphs have been created, we'll return to spacing and kerning. And once the font is ready for export, we'll set up the information about the font before generating the font file. I've done a lot of editing on the uppercase. Here you can see I've heavied them up, and there's a few characters that have completely changed. For example, I didn't like the G, and this O is much more consistent with the design. The K, R, and S also needed some tweaking. Let's take a look in the preview and see if there are any glaring issues. Okay, I think it's looking fairly decent. You can see I've created additional punctuation and symbols, and now I want to quickly show how to create an alternate Y, which I will name Y.SSO1. I'll take components of the V and the J to create a more angled Y. I've sped up the video for the sake of time. You may notice that I haven't removed overlaps on this alternate Y. Keeping separate elements will make it easier if I want to do more editing later. Now I'll create the full character set and complete the missing glyphs off camera. I'll use the Macintosh character set to create the glyphs, and you can see that there are quite a few that I need to design. If you have no plans to release your design to the public, you won't need to have all these characters in your font. Okay, I've completed the Macintosh character set, and I added a few stylistic glyphs and ligatures. Let's take a look at how the font is shaping up with regard to spacing. The first thing I see is that I never adjusted the space glyph. Let's take a look at the letter O. It's about a 450, so I'll make the space glyph a width of 450. I've sped up the video while I make some kerning adjustments, and I think the width of the space key could be changed to 375 to avoid rivers in text. Okay, I've made a few more kerning and spacing updates, and though there's likely much more I'll want to do, let's move on to the programming. You'll recall that glyphs will automatically do most of the programming work. I left the cult feature and deleted the rest, and now I'll simply hit the update button and all of the programming appears. Since I added other glyphs of the Mac character set, the stylistic sets and additional programming have been created automatically. Now that the programming has been added, I can take a look at the various features available in the font. These features can be accessed at the bottom left of the preview panel. I can adjust the preview or hide it completely. Notice when I select the SSO1 feature, the text changes according to the glyphs that have been assigned that feature. This gives me the ability to kern the alternate forms in the font, and it's another reason you want to wait to kern your font till last. Once you have the font looking the way you want, it's time to prepare it for export. Let's jump to the information window again and do some prep work. You can see I have the name and other information about the design. There are additional parameters that you can add, but that's beyond the scope of this workshop. You'll need to do a little research on your own for that. You'll want to give your master a name as well. In this case, there's only one version of the font, so it's simply regular. You'll then go to the Exports tab and create an instance for the master. The font is now ready to generate the export. In other words, create the font file that will be used in other programs like Adobe Illustrator. Exports are the actual font file used. To create or generate the export, go into File, Export, or simply select Command E on your keyboard. Exports may be generated a number of ways. I usually create them as PostScript OpenType or OTF files. You can choose the destination for your export, but I'm going to keep it on the desktop. Once generated, I'll go into the desktop, find the file, and open it with FontBook. As I'm sure you know, once a font is installed, it can be used by any program on your computer. So I'm going to jump over to Adobe Illustrator and see how the font performs. Here you can see I copied the text from glyphs and pasted it into this Illustrator document. With the text selected, I'll change the font from the default to my new Rob's Calligraph and see how it looks. So far, so good. Now here is where the programming pays off. Notice when I hover my cursor over a single letter, like this F for example, Illustrator provides a pop-up of the alternates of that form, which I may then swap out with the original. OpenType features in your font will also appear in the OpenType panel. Unavailable features that have not been programmed appear in gray, while those that are highlighted are. In the final video installment, I'll briefly touch on more advanced topics like variable fonts. I'll then try to answer some frequently asked questions and maybe touch on things I may have missed throughout the course of these lessons. Until then, happy font making!